Russell Brunson said that if you do a webinar every single week for a year, you'll have a 7-figure business. But what if you don't want to wait a year? I pretty much went from 0 to over 100 Go High Level SaaS clients in 90 days. I won my Go High Level SaaSpreneur Gold Award. I built a $30K per month business all within 90 days from webinars.
Welcome to the Audate show. And in today's episode, I have Alister. And Alister is a guest who went from a journey of living in Brazil to working for Facebook and Apple to transitioning to being one of the top Go High Level agencies where he gets customers through his webinar daily process. If that's interesting to you, where you want to see how someone generated hundreds of thousands of dollars and generated hundreds of customers, in today's episode, you're going to be learning exactly how Alister did it, going from a 9-to-5 corporate employee down to being one of the top Go High Level agencies. Let's get started. Alister, man, thank you for being here. Episode 1 in the Audate show. You're in Las Vegas. What brought you to Las Vegas, man?
Man, first, thank you for having me. Episode 1 of the Audate show. Privileged, super excited. Thank you for having me today. I'm here for the Funnel Hacking Live this week. As you know, I'm also really into Go High Level. I started my personal marketing journey in Go High Level, and I'm here for Funnel Hacking Live because I understand the value of getting in the right rooms.
But there's a conflict that I saw, at least, between High Level and ClickFunnels. You know, how do you feel about being in the room when ClickFunnels has a conflict with High Level and so forth?
I think one thing is if you look at the people in that room, a lot of them are system agnostic. We all want to grow our business.
Yeah.
You got a lot of people that won awards earlier this year are also winning awards in ClickFunnels. And I can name 5 or 6 people off the top of my head at the top of the game.
Yeah.
And so if I want to be at the top of the game, I'm going to do what other people are doing. And it's about growing your personal business at the end of the day, not about any kind of, clicks or anything like that. And the Go High Level people, they understand that, they understand where this game came from.
Yeah.
They understand who started this internet thing. And they also understand this is the last Funnel Hacking Live event.
Yeah. You think there's going to be another Funnel Hacking Live or something like it?
No.
Moving forward, you think?
Not after watching yesterday's closing.
Yeah.
How emotional everybody got. There's going to be a lot. Like Russell Brunson talked about the future of the Funnel Hacking Live events and a future of ClickFunnels. There's going to be an awards ceremony they're going to do 1 or 2 twice a year. But Funnel Hacking Live is pretty much done. What he talked about was the next evolution of the Funnel Hacking Live type events. He was talking about how people pretty much have been kind of funnel hacking live, and a lot of these events starting to look more and more similar. And there's a lot of marketing events out there.
Yeah.
And what he wants to do is he had a dream one day of being able to basically sell out Madison Square Garden and have a different kind of event that, only he could pull off, basically.
Okay. So you see the future is different for marketing, for marketing events.
Possibly. It has to be different.
Yeah.
We can't, that's how things go. It's like one person does something different and they lead the industry. Other people try to keep up with that. And then it becomes like this homogenous kind of, washed out kind of thing where everyone's kind of doing something very similar. And then one person makes a leap forward and then people have a new North Star to kind of look towards. And that's, I think, how a lot of things go in the industry, anything that requires innovation.
He definitely did pioneer the digital marketing space. Like, I remember in 2017 when I heard of a funnel and I'm like, what is a funnel? What is that? And I started a trial of ClickFunnels. And then from there, I went to Kajabi, and you're 100% right about being system agnostic. And when I started my journey, I started to recognize that entrepreneurs didn't really care about the platform that they were using as long as they got the results that they were seeking. And when I think about you, I see you on your power washing. Then one day you're doing a webinar. The next day you're onboarding a customer, on tech. What is that world that you're living in? Because you're living in a whole different world than most of us. And the next day you're fighting. Like right after that, you're fighting somebody.
I don't know what it is, man. I think when I was younger, I had this thing in my head where I want to experience the breadth of life.
Yeah.
Like everything. I just want to touch everything. I don't know. Some people call it ADD or whatever. I don't know if I really believe in that. Whatever, diagnosed as a kid, I don't know if I really believe in that as an adult. I know that I just definitely hop from thing to thing, and that's probably kept me from achieving a certain level of success in life. But now, as I'm in my late 30s, I've been able to identify what that means and how important it is to have sustained focus on something. But as I look back at my journey, I realized that each thing has led me to the next.
Yeah. Okay. So
take
us through your businesses.
Yeah. So for example, one of my very first business was an iPhone repair business.
Okay.
I was in college and I was like, I got to find a way to make a little bit of side money. I posted an ad on Craigslist. I used to work at a store that repaired iPhones. Posted an ad on Craigslist and I'm like, I'll repair your iPhone. And started getting a bunch of messages and I'm like, okay, this is a potential business here. So I was repairing iPhones on corner stores and coffee shops, and I eventually opened up a store and then grew that to a second store. And then at one point, I'm like, okay, this is one of these businesses that's not going to be a big business. It's a small, nice little job for somebody. So when I graduated college, I sold that company.
What year was that?
That was 2014.
What city were you in?
A little small town called Humboldt. I don't know. Have you heard of Humboldt?
No. What state is that in?
California.
Oh, California. Okay.
They're known for like their weed production. I don't know. They're like the one of the place like everyone knows about. Oh yeah, the weed place, like whatever. So I went to Humboldt State University. It was the only college that I could get into. It's now called Cal Poly University, Humboldt. So I sold that business because I didn't want to be in that small town, and I realized like I had bigger ambitions and I wanted to just get out. So that was my first like exit.
How many years were you in that? I was in the cell phone industry as well.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay. I was like in the cell phone industry for a long time. I used to sell cell phones. In fact, my first sales job was one of these annoying salespeople at the mall.
Yeah, at a kiosk, at a mall.
At a kiosk.
That's
really? That's where I learned to hustle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's like the great starting route because you have to bring people to the kiosk and get them to come in.
Excuse me, miss. What kind of shoes are those? Oh, have you heard about T-Mobile?
Yeah. You used to do T-Mobile?
I did all. We did. Yeah, it was T-Mobile. Yeah, at first. Yeah.
Did you ever use the Whisper?
No, I don't know what that is.
The Whisper? Because when I used to run a kiosk, I would say,
oh yeah,
and then they would say what, and I would say,
that's a good.
And then
one.
they come closer, and I'm like, what phone do you have? And then we would take their phone and then put it behind the kiosk.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what that is? That's called a pattern interrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I learned about pattern interrupt. Because you can't lead with like, hey, you want a phone? You want a phone? No. It's like you walk into Nordstrom's, hey, can I help you with something? No, I'm good. I'm just looking.
Yeah.
Right? What you have to do is create a pattern interrupt.
Okay.
And that's the same way that marketing works. Like you think if you're scrolling on TikTok or you're scrolling on Instagram, you see, hey, want to buy my stuff? No, I don't want to buy your stuff. But like I have to be more tactful in the way that I get into your brain and get into your subconscious, and I can distract you from whatever you're thinking about for 1 second. And then there's a little bit of space to enter. Have you read Outwitting the Devil?
I have.
And there's at one point he says that the devil lives in the blank space in your cells, basically. So it's like, if you have a definite purpose in life and I want to go, I'm here and I want to go there and I'm going full speed ahead, then there's no space for any kind of devil or any kind of drifting to occur. But if I'm not fully committed, if I'm at 96% committed to going there, then that leaves a little bit of space for me to say, what's over there? What's over there? Right. And that's how sales can work. And that's where like somebody can work their way inside. And it could be that you can call it the devil. You could call it a salesperson. You could call it a lady in the red dress, whatever you want to call it. But when you have a definite purpose, there's no room for anything like that. But when you leave a little bit of space open or you allow someone to kind of come in that's not on your exact path, then that's where things can get distracted.
How are you being able to maximize the two or balance the two or have harmonious experience with both businesses? Is that the only two businesses that you have, or do you have other businesses?
Oh, no. So I sold that business, right? I sold my pressure washing business, and then I moved to Brazil.
So recap. You were in Humboldt.
Yeah.
You're doing cell phones, and then you got into pressure washing?
Not yet. So I sold that company. I'm like, I'm out of here. It's not very fun. And so I was like, I graduated college, sold my business, had a pocket full of cash. I'm like, what am I going to do? Go to South America, right? Of course. I went down there, and I'm like, I'm going to spend 6 weeks or 2 months down there. And while I was down there, the thought of like hopping back on a plane, looking for a job on Indeed, like it crushed me. And I'm like, I can't go home. Not yet. My money's going to go further here because I don't have a job yet. So I'm going to like just play this out. While I was in Brazil, I'm like, how do I make a little bit of money? So I did the only thing I knew how, just repair iPhones. So I started posting some flyers, same way. And then actually, I kind of just blew up again, accidentally started another business repairing iPhones in Brazil. And I didn't. And
you went back to what you knew?
I went back to what I knew. Yeah, I learned the language. I learned how to speak Portuguese fluently, and I started, I started a business. I didn't really mean to start a business. In fact, Brazil is ranked one of the hardest places in the world to start a business because of the amount of bureaucracy that's involved in starting a business. While I was down there, I met a girl, and then one thing led to another, and I didn't want to leave Brazil without her. So I asked her to marry me, and then we, eventually what was supposed to be a 3-month trip to Brazil ended up being a 4-year trip to Brazil. I was training jiu-jitsu, this and that, asked her to marry me. Now we're waiting for the visa. Eventually, visa came through, came back to the United States, and I got a job in corporate America because that's what you do. That's right. That's what my parents told me to do. That's what I always thought I was going to do. Get a job, corporate America. Right? I ended up working at startups, worked at a startup for a few years. And then eventually pandemic hit. Actually, I quit like 3 months before the pandemic hit. Then
That was a wake-up call, huh?
Mm-hmm. What's that?
That was a wake-up call.
Yeah, definitely. So then I was unemployed for about a year or so, and then I got a job working at Facebook as a project manager. And I did that for like a year And then I got a job working at Apple as a project manager. While I was working at Apple, I realized like, this is not what I want to do. This is not what I want to do. I have what some people would consider to be like their dream job, working at a big company, one of the biggest companies, with an amazing career path ahead of me, more money than I'd ever made. And I was on a career path to make even more if I were to stick there. But I'm with people that I don't like, that I have nothing to do with. And I'm on a path that's, really wasn't taking down where I want to go. So I saw on TikTok, this guy claims to make 16-year-old kid claims to make $100 an hour pressure washing. I'm like, you know what's cool about that? I bet if I ask enough people if I can clean their house, then I would actually make some money. I don't need to go make the next Starlink or the next Tesla. I don't have to do that. I just have to ask enough people if I can clean their house and I was going to make money. So I made a TikTok video one time testing TikTok side hustles, and that video went viral, like 3 million views. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm going to make more TikTok content now. So that's pretty much how I kicked off my pressure washing business, is like I started to document my process of building my business online. And then my first year, we did about $500,000 in sales, $500,000 in sales in a small town, in an industry where most people never really get past the 10K per month mark. And so people started to wonder how I did it. And that kind of started my marketing agency stuff, where I'm like, it's very easy. I have this thing called, like Go High Level, and like I just run some ads, and then like I'm good on the phones, and then like you gotta hire somebody, and then like it's very easy. And that kind of kicked off my marketing journey. Then I started like teaching other people and getting into the agency side of it. And one day I thought to myself, my goal is to make $1 million cash per year. That's my goal, to have in my pocket $1 million a year. Okay, I have a pressure washing business. So I started to do the math on a whiteboard. One day it hit me like, you know what? I never even did the math. I want to make $1 million a year, but I never actually like did the math. How many trucks do I need? How much advertising spend do I have to have? How many employees? I did the math. I looked at the whiteboard and I'm like, this just ain't gonna happen. This is not the way this is gonna happen. And at that moment, I decided I have to do an online business. And since then, I've been all in on creating my online business. Ended up growing an agency, and yeah, that's
what services were you doing in the agency?
Well, I started out doing Facebook ads, because I'm like, okay, I mean, like I thought that's like the biggest thing, Facebook ads. I'll show you how to run Facebook ads, or I'll run Facebook ads for you. But that was really hard, because people either they don't have the right mindset around advertising. I don't want to spend $1,000 a month on ads, $2,000 a month on ads. You're not spending money. But like people, especially like cleaners and home service businesses, they have the wrong mentality around advertising and marketing. It's really hard. And what I would do is I would like run ads, and I would get people on a sales call, and I would try to sell them.
For your service or for their service?
I would try to sell them on advertising for them.
Okay, so these ads that you're running are to acquire customers for your agency.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So I would say, hey, I'll run your ads, whatever, help you get customers. Facebook ads are great. And I'd book a call with these people, and it was just so time consuming. I would have 8 sales calls in one day. Mm-hmm. And every single one of them, like a lot of times you have like a really high no-show rate. So I'd book 8 calls in a day. I'd have no problem running the ads, getting booked appointments. Then I'd spend a whole day, my calendar's blocked off for 8 hours, appointment after appointment after appointment. Only like 50% of them would show up.
Yeah.
And then of that, they weren't pre-framed, they didn't know anything about me. They weren't qualified. So my close rate was low. So I'd spend an entire day, my whole day would be blocked off for like 4 sales appointments, and they weren't necessarily qualified or pre-framed and ready for a sale. So I wasn't making any sales. Mm-hmm. And then one day I tried a webinar, and I said, let me just give this a shot. Even if only 8 people showed up on my webinar, I would rather spend 1 hour pitching to 8 people than 8 hours pitching to one person.
At a time.
At a time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, I hope you're loving the episode so far. Before we go back to the episode, I just wanted to make a comment and share with you that you can actually use Webinar Core to host your daily webinar. If you want to learn the key processes that Alister is sharing on how he's hosting daily webinars, you can use one software that automates your entire webinar system, and you can have daily sales using Webinar Core. So to learn more about Webinar Core, which is one platform to streamline all your webinars and to automate it on a daily, you take your pre-recorded webinar, you play it on autopilot, and it looks and feels like a live webinar to your audience. If that's interesting to you, check out webinarcore.com/daily. Once again, that's webinarcore.com/daily, and the link is in the description.
So basically, I did a webinar. My first webinar, I got I sold a $97 product, and I sold 17 sales of a $97 product. And I'm like, whoa, that was fun. Mm-hmm. So I did it again the following week or like a few weeks later. And then I was like, and then I got into this book called, Expert Secrets, which is why I was actually excited to go see Funnel Hacking Live, because that book pretty much changed my life. You read it?
No.
Oh man. It's a good one.
Actually, yes, I listened to the audiobook.
Right.
I haven't read it, but I listened to the audiobook.
Yeah, I listened to the audiobook first, and then I got the book because it has a really great diagrams in it. And so Russell Brunson, so here's what happens. Doing a webinar, and then I do another webinar, and then I do another webinar, and then Russell Brunson in the book says, if you do a webinar every week for a year, you have a 7-figure business. So I'm like, okay. I start doing a webinar every single week. And every single week I would get clients, 8 clients, 15 clients, 6 clients, 9 clients every week. I'm like, this is fun. This is working. And so one day I posted in the Go High Level group, and I'm like, hey guys, I was super excited. Webinars are working for me. I got 20 new clients last week. This is awesome. Here's how I'm doing it. And then like Sean Clark, and then I said, one day I'm going to get my Go High Level SaaSpreneur award. One day, And Sean Clark posted on the thing, and he's like, in the comments, and he's like, Sean Clark, CEO of Go High Level, the way you're going, I'll give you the award myself on stage in October. And I was like, oh, that's this year? I did the math. I'm like, I need 80 clients in 3 months? I don't think I could do that. Can I? And like, I started going home doing the math. I'm like, what would it take? What would it take? That's a good frame. For anyone that's not sure that you're able to accomplish something in life, ask yourself this question. What would it take? Because nothing's impossible. There's just a cost, there's a price, everything it takes. What would it take? And so I started doing the math. I'm like, I think I could barely hit it. I did everything right. Everything goes right. I could barely hit it. And so that started me off on this journey of okay, I don't want to wait one more week to do another webinar. Like I want to do another webinar like tomorrow. And then I want to do another one the next day. And then I want to do another one the next day. So that started this thing where I now call the nightly webinar method. Russell Brunson said that if you do a webinar every single week for a year, you'll have a 7-figure business. But what if you don't want to wait a year? So I started doing a webinar every single night live for about 3 months. And I went from, I pretty much went from 0 to over 100 Go High Level SaaS clients in 90 days. I won my Go High Level SaaSpreneur Gold Award. I built a $30K per month business all within 90 days from webinars. So that's kind of my story.
Yeah, the webinar system is phenomenal, and I love how you went through that journey of having all of these sales appointments on your calendar. And I can imagine what it's like to have someone there for 9 o'clock in the morning. They don't show up. Another one for 10 o'clock in the morning. They show up. They're not pre-framed, right? They don't have the seed of understanding who you are, what your business is, and how you're going to serve them. And so it's essentially a cold call at that time.
Yes.
And then you go to the next one, and the next one, the next one, and then whatever the results are for that day is that result, or you could just have them all go into the same call.
Mm-hmm.
So take us through the daily webinar method, that process. What does that process look like?
Okay, so it hit me one day, and it was like, dang, this actually makes a lot of sense. So here's what happens. If you do a webinar, most people do them weekly. Okay, most people don't do them, but some people do them occasionally, and some people do them weekly on a regular basis. But the thing about doing a weekly webinar is, let's say it's Monday, you see the ad, and the webinar's on Thursday. Do you know what you're gonna do with Thursday at 4 p.m.? You're not sure exactly, so maybe you don't register. And then let's say Thursday rolls around, and then you forgot that you've been registered for a webinar, and now you're getting these messages and stuff, but you hadn't planned on it and actually showing up. So when you do a nightly webinar, a couple things happen. First thing is your opt-in rate's higher. Why? Because I know what I'm doing tonight. I don't know what I'm doing in 5 days from now. Second, the show-up rate's higher because I signed up today. I didn't sign up 5 days ago. I signed up today. So I'm more likely to remember to actually show up. Third, you have the compounding principle, because if you didn't show up today, you might show up tomorrow. If you didn't show up tomorrow, you could show up the next day. Instead of having to wait a full week, you're more likely to be able to get these people onto the next call. So it just snowballs. And then, so there's all these different benefits to running a webinar nightly instead of running a webinar like weekly.
Have you found that the night is better than the daytime or the morning time?
That's a good question. I haven't really experimented with it so much. I kind of got to a point where this particular time was kind of working. The general rule of thumb is like, if you're depending on who your avatar is. If you're going after entrepreneurs, then daytime is probably a good idea. If you're going after, B2C consumers, or people have regular W2 jobs, then the evening is probably better. I found 4 p.m. is a pretty good time to do it, but I know some people do it all different times of the day, and I haven't split tested that specifically over a long period of time to know.
Got it. And then what are the drawbacks from doing a nightly webinar or daily webinar?
I think the main, one thing is like, it takes a little bit of cojones, a little bit of guts to do it. Because what happens is instead of spending a week's worth, like let's say you're spending $100 a day on your ads to get to your webinar on Thursday. Okay, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're all spending $100 a day, $500. Now, the way that nightly webinar works is because it's just a math equation, right? Business is just math. If I'm getting, let's say, $10 per lead, at $100 per day, that's 10 leads per day. So instead of spending $100 a day for 5 days, I have to now condense the ad spend down to 1 day. And as long as the lead cost stays constant, then the math works out exactly the same. So the first downside is that there's higher risk involved if you don't have a proven webinar. Which is why I recommend that you start with a periodic webinar first, and once you have one that you know converts at a consistent
What's
level.
the interval? Is it like once a month, once a week, in the periodic before you do daily?
I say once a week is enough.
Okay.
Because that's enough time for you to tweak it in between.
Okay.
Because if you're doing it nightly, there's not a whole lot of time, especially if you're running a business. Like now you're doing onboardings, now you're doing this, now you're doing that. So I like weekly for sure. I think if you commit to doing it weekly for a period of time, if you say, even if I don't get any sales, like there have been times when I got 0 sales.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I show up tomorrow and do it again, you know? So that's one of the disadvantages. So start weekly until you have one that you know what the inputs and outputs are. I did like 10 weekly webinars before I ever moved to nightly. And I knew what my percentages were. I knew it became it wasn't even a guess anymore that I was going to get clients. I was gonna have 25% of people show up. I was gonna have a 10 to 15% close rate. You know, other people that bought, I was gonna have an X amount of upsell. So that was one disadvantage. The other disadvantage is that it is a grind.
Yeah.
It is not for the weak-hearted. And everyone's always asking me like, is it automated? Is it automated? No. The reason why is because live is always going to outperform an automated webinar. The caveat is that I know what you do. And you have an amazing system. You have like webinars like 5 or 10 a day that are automated. So even if your close rate is lower, you are doing much more webinars because it's much more scalable. And so you're going to be able to have that kind of, you're going to be able to negate that lower close rate with a more volume of webinars. You're doing like 5 or 6 automated webinars per day instead of like one live one per day. But live is always going to have a much higher close rate.
So you're going traffic source to a funnel, funnel to a live webinar. Where's your webinar hosted on?
I tried them all. I did Webinar Kit, Webinar Jam, StreamYard, Zoom, YouTube. The one that I landed on now is Zoom. It's the one that I've had the least technical difficulties with.
Yeah.
The worst thing you see is like, hey, it kicked me out, or like, or I can't get in. Like those are nightmares. When you're running $1,000 a day, $2,000 a day on ads, like that's like a nightmare.
Yeah.
So Zoom has been the most stable, and then you can bring in the data from Zoom to see who showed up, how long they were on the webinar, that kind of stuff, and then you can make automations based on the high intent people that didn't show up. So and also the thing I noticed about Zoom is because it's not in a browser and it's actually in a software.
It's an app, yeah.
It actually has a higher retention than some of the other ones because it requires a little more to get on in the first place. And then also, I encourage people to turn on their cameras, which also helps with retention. So they all have it. If anyone's listening to this thinking about doing a webinar, like don't get caught up on it. Like they're all good. It all works. Like don't get caught up on it.
If someone is working a 9-to-5 job today as we wrap up, and let's say that they're similar to your stage at Apple right now as they're listening, they're like, I relate. I'm still learning about the webinar and high level, or how to create sales and how to get 100 customers. I'm still learning about that, but my current stage is I'm at Apple or I'm at Facebook, and I can relate with Alister with everything he's saying all the way up to the Apple piece. And I want to go from the Apple piece in their journey to being an entrepreneur. What message do you have to say to that person?
I would say Andy's probably going to put a link to join for Go High Level in the link to the description of this video. So that's the first step. Go sign up. Just make a step. Like when you take a stand and you say, this is what I'm doing, and I don't have it all figured out yet, but I know that just like when I'm driving down the road and it's really foggy, and I have my headlights on and I can't see all the way where I'm going, but I can see 10 feet in front of me. Sometimes that's all you need to be able to see is 10 feet in front of you. And if you just keep going down that path and you just commit to yourself that I'm gonna figure this out, then everything else kind of works itself along the way. So sign up with Andy for his Go High Level, whatever he's got going on. Take that first step and figure it out. Like you're a smart person. You're a smart person. Okay, I believe in you're smart. You're going to figure it out along the way. But the only way you're not going to figure it out is 1, if you never start, and 2 is if you quit. So that's my advice.
When you say that, like I feel the passion. Do you feel like there's an element of you talking to your older self?
Hell yeah. In a sense, because I've always been a little crazy. For me, I was sometimes nervous to like take that next step. I think we all need a little bit of a little push sometimes. And sometimes it's easier to get those forces from outside of you. What happens is a lot of people in your 9 to 5, they'll be happy to work 8 hours a day for somebody else. But now when you go take the journey to entrepreneurship, you struggle to find the discipline to work 2 hours a day. Why? It's because there's no external forces acting on you. The environment that you have is so important. Think about it like this. If you're a smoker, you struggle with drug addiction, and there's drugs, there's cigarettes right in your house. How long are you going to be able to resist that cigarette, resist those drugs? Maybe an hour, maybe a day, maybe a week, if you really try. I take that same addict and I put them into a desert with no access to drugs, no access to alcohol. What are the chances that they are going to smoke or take drugs?
Very low.
0. Because there is no drugs. It's not possible. It's no longer within the realm of possibility. You can't, because I put you in an environment where there are no drugs. There are no cigarettes. So the environment that you're around is so important. And so you have to get around the right people. You have to get around a community like your community. All the people that are in your community, they support each other. You know, like I see your Slack channel, they all help each other out. They also bring each other up, right? So like anyone listening, I'd say get into any Slack channel. Like you got to be in the right room. And sometimes you have to pay to be in the right room.
Well, Alister, thank you so much for being on episode 1. And if you were looking to learn more about Alister, how can the people find you?
Hit me up on Instagram. Pretty easy to find. You can also go to alister.com. And I love to inspire, motivate, and just like bring each other up as a community. Like Go High Level is awesome. ClickFunnels is awesome. It's all freaking awesome. We're all on our own journey. And whatever you got to do, just make it happen. Thanks for having me on episode 1, bro. Holy moly. Shit.
This is amazing. Thank you, brother.
My brother. Thank you, best. Thank you much.